Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's your reluctant gringo back again from south of the border. That's right. It is, it's late in the afternoon here. And so wherever you are, I hope you're having a great day. But thank you for joining us. A federal judge has extended the ban on Trump's order targeting Harvard international students. Now, if you didn't know, as part of the immigration enforcement and part of sort of the culture war, President Trump has decided to tell Harvard they can no longer give visas, and they need to revoke all the visas of all the international students that go to that university. Why? Because of all the pro-Hamas activity going on. Fair enough. Okay. Well, Harvard sued. Of course, it went to a judge in Massachusetts, very liberal, Cambridge, Massachusetts. They were going to rule against Trump. This was going to happen. Now it's been appealed to a federal judge. What federal judge got it? Well, a federal judge outside of Cambridge, Massachusetts. An Obama-appointed judge. And I could tell you right off the bat before the case was even heard that this judge was going to rule against the Trump administration and in favor of Harvard. Harvard is ruling that this is a First Amendment issue, saying that President Trump is stifling the First Amendment freedoms of the university to hold protests and things like that. A federal judge in Boston agreed Monday to extend a temporary restraining order blocking President Donald Trump's attempt to block international students from entering the U.S. to study at Harvard. The update is a near-term win for the nation's oldest university in its month-long fight with the Trump administration. Lawyers for Harvard had urged U.S. District Judge Allison Burroughs on Monday to extend two restraining orders that block the Trump administration from revoking its credentials under the Student Exchange Visitor Program, or SEVP. So basically, Trump was basically saying, I'm just going to revoke Harvard's ability to even do this. I'm not going to go after the students. I'm just going to revoke their ability to do this. In which temporarily blocked a proclamation Trump signed earlier this month that barred foreign nationals from traveling to the U.S. if they plan to study or research at Harvard. Okay. Now, one of the reasons Trump did this is he asked for all the information Harvard had, disciplinary information, all the files that they had on the international students, so they could vet who these students were, where they were coming from, what their background was, all that, which I thought was a reasonable thing. It is what it is. When my wife applied to become a U.S. citizen and became a permanent resident of the United States, they asked for anything. They asked for literally everything. I even made the joke while sitting in the interview. I go, do you want to know what color underwear she's wearing at this point in time? I mean, it was literally, they asked for every little thing about her. And she was just we were already married at that point in time. So I'm like, we were already married. We already had kids. I'm like, this should be easy. We filed taxes together. All right. Like, that should be easy. So I don't see a problem with the Trump administration or any administration asking for any background information they wish. But Harvard said no. They said no to any disciplinary records they had on those students. They said no to any video footage or pictures of those students attending rallies for pro-Hamas, the terrorist organization that is as named a terrorist organization by the United States. I think that's fair information to have and to want to vet people to see exactly what they're up to. Hey, you want to come to the United States? You know, freedom comes with a cost. You don't get to promote terrorism. That's it. So the proclamation is a plain violation of the First Amendment. Ian Gershengorn, a lawyer, that's one hell of a name. A lawyer for Harvard told Judge Burroughs in court on Monday in seeking a preliminary injunction, a more lasting form of a court-ordered relief. Now, this is all going to go to the Supreme Court. It's going to go to an appellate court, but eventually it's going to go to the Supreme Court. No matter who wins or loses the appellate court, this is going to the Supreme Court, and this is where Harvard loses. So Harvard can, or you can sit there and say, hey, I'm really happy that Harvard won. I wouldn't be so happy because in the end, you're going to lose. And how do I know you're going to lose? This case has already been decided and it has precedent. A lot of people are saying this case doesn't have precedent. You hear liberal pundits say there's no precedent. It's unbelievable what Trump's doing. It's unprecedented. Wrong. It's precedented. It's actually precedented from the first Trump administration, okay? And we actually have the receipts. All right. So if you didn't remember, in the first Trump administration, he had his famous travel ban, right? People called it a Muslim travel ban, even though it did include one country, Venezuela, which has nothing to do with Muslims. But for the most part, it had a travel ban on Muslim countries. I think it was 8 or 9 of those countries. And that kept getting struck down in lower courts and struck down in lower courts and struck down in lower courts because you can court shop. But once you get to the Supreme Court, you're rolling the dice, depending on what you got for judges up there. And so, first of all, if you want to understand this case, you need to understand the INA, the Immigration and Naturalization Act, which is a conglomerate of many, many, many laws from over the years. But if you put it all together, what you have to understand is that section 22F. See, I did the research for you. I like to do the research for you. I like looking this stuff up because it's interesting to me, and I like doing the research for all of you to be able to explain this. Section 212F, the president's authority to suspend the entry of non-citizens. Now, here it is right here. I'm not going to read it from here because I'm going to read it from the Chief Justice's own decision when he made that decision back a couple of years ago concerning Trump's travel ban. All right? Again, Trump had a travel ban. He said, I'm going to not allow these people to come into the country for any reason. No visas, no nothing, bam. Okay. And this is Chief Justice John Roberts writing the decision in a 5-4 decision, which would probably be a 6-3 decision today because we have a 6-3 court split. And he writes, by its plain language, section 1182F, which is what that section I just read to you is in, grants the president broad discretion to suspend the entry of aliens into the United States. Congress has already delegated to the president, the executive branch, the authority for whatever reason he may seem fit. Whatever reason he may seem fit, if he feels like something is a threat to national security, to be able to look at a group of people or a country or whatever diaspora you want to look at and say, no, they cannot come in. The president lawfully exercised that discretion based on his findings following a worldwide multi-agency review that entry of the covered aliens would be detrimental to the national interest. And plaintiffs' attempts to identify a conflict with other provisions in the INA and their appeal to the statute's purposes and legislative history fail to overcome the clear statutory language. And here is the statutory language. Here's the actual law. And then you'll understand why President Trump is going to win in Supreme Court. Whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens or of any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, he may, by proclamation, he doesn't have to go to Congress and get this approved. He doesn't have to go to a court of law and get this approved. By he just has to write it out on a piece of paper and sign his name. He may, by proclamation, and for such period as he shall deem necessary. So you can say, this is for the next 100 years. This is for the next 100 days. It's up to the president. Suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restrictions he may deem to be appropriate. Nowhere in there does it give a judge any leeway. None. It's simply, it's over and over and again. It's the president's authority. The president's authority, the president's authority. In this one little paragraph of the Immigration and Naturalization Act is the legality for President Trump's ban or removal of Harvard's ability to issue or speed up or facilitate visas for foreign students. He's identified a class of students. He's identified an organization which he believes is having a detrimental impact on the national security of the United States, mainly Harvard. He thinks Harvard is having that negative impact by allowing students and not vetting them properly and allowing them to congregate and facilitate support for a terrorist organization from a foreign country. And by there being a threat to the security and rights and life of Jewish students on campus. That is the president's argument. And regardless of whether you agree with that argument, guess what? He's the president. It doesn't say the gringo has the right to do this. It doesn't say Joe Schmo has the right to do this. It doesn't say Sally liberal progressive has the right to do this. No, it's very clear within all of this text that this is extreme power given to the president by the Congress. The Immigration and Naturalization Act was passed by the legislature. Therefore, it really can't be argued that it's anything more than what it is. It is what it is. And again, this is section 1182F, and this is from the Supreme Court decision, Trump v. Hawaii, from the October 2017 term, Supreme Court of the United States, Trump, President of the United States versus the state of Hawaii, which is the state that sued to overrule the travel ban. Again, this is the syllabus, kind of detailing the court case, kind of all that stuff, right? It's really interesting reading. I'm not going to read it all to you, but I just want you to understand that Chief Justice Roberts delivered the opinion of the court himself, in which Justice Kennedy sits on the bench right now, Thomas, who still sits on the bench right now, Alito, who still sits on the bench right now, Gorsuch, who still sits on the bench right now, all right? They've all joined in and said, in a concurring opinion, joined by Breyer, a dissenting opinion from Kagan, Sotomayor, and Ginsburg, the three liberals. Ginsburg now, of course, she's deceased, replaced by Ketanji Jackson Brown. So this is going to be a 6-3 decision when this hits the court, and it's going to be in favor of Donald Trump. And again, you can like it, not like it, too bad. Vote people into Congress and change the law. That is the only way to get around this. Harvard is going to lose this case. There's no way around. I don't see any other legality, and you can argue it's First Amendment right. Doesn't matter. The president has the right, if he determines that it's a national security threat, an alien or group of aliens or whatever is a threat to that national security, he can deny them entry and revoke their visas. Now, I think it's interesting that President Trump, instead of going after the individual students, went after the organization, the institution, which is Harvard. And I think he's picking that fight for a reason, because he wants to expand the reading of the INA, the Immigration Naturalization Act. He could just tell the State Department to just say, who are these 7,000 students? Okay, individually, just send them all letters. Your visa's revoked, get out. He could do that. And no one can blink an eye, say bat an eye and say, oh, no. But instead, he's going after Harvard because he wants the institution to understand, hey, no more bullshit. Same thing, Columbia caved, people. Columbia caved. They wanted their money. They didn't want to be cut off. They didn't want to go through all this. Columbia caved, and they changed their rules, and they started enforcing their rules. And you don't see the bullshit you see or that we saw a few months ago. So, again, you'll have Kagan and Sotomayor and Ketanji Jackson Brown. All right. I want to pronounce her name correctly. All right. You may not like her. She's still an associate justice of the Supreme Court. Have a little respect. They're going to still dissent, and they may use First Amendment grounds to dissent. They may use a different interpretation of the Immigration Naturalization Act to dissent. But in the end, you're going to have at least 5, but most likely 6 justices concur together to say, the president has the authority to do this under the Constitution of the United States and under the Immigration and Naturalization Act. And that's it. See you later. So either Harvard, comply, or lose all your international students. And when that happens, watch Yale, Berkeley, Princeton, Stanford, whoever, right? Watch all the University of Chicago, NYU, where Barron Trump goes as a student. Watch all of these colleges and universities just sort of fall in line like dominoes. You may get 1 or 2 that try to appeal or try to do something but once the Supreme Court, you don't get around the Supreme Court, folks. So again, small victory for the left right now, or for Harvard. But again, once this goes, we'll kick out an opinion as soon as we can. So they made a ruling, but they haven't written the opinion yet. I always find that odd. I'm finding that odd with these court cases as of late. Like, they issue an opinion, and they say, we're going to rule in favor of this person before they actually write the opinion. I find that backwards. I always thought you should write, it's like if I was to write an essay for college, I'm giving you my conclusion before I give you all my supporting evidence or my supporting thought patterns. I always find that interesting. All these court cases that get into the Supreme Court are what they are. I think most of the time when you read the plain text of the law, again, President Trump is trying to stretch these things. President Trump is trying to push the boundaries of the interpretations of these things. But in the end, he's poking the boundaries, but he's not breaking the boundaries where he is going outside of the intent of these. How have presidents, now Trump is invoking his right to use this power to take away visas from students at Harvard. How have other presidents used it? All right. Well, kind of interesting. President Obama suspended the entry of certain persons who engaged in conduct involving grave human rights abuses by the governments of Iran and Syria via information technology. Okay. President Bush suspended the entry of immigrants and non-immigrants that engaged in or benefited from corruption, to name a few base proclamations and executive orders. So this has been used. Again, then they mentioned Trump's travel ban here. The Supreme Court versus notably in that decision, the court assumed that Section 212 could not be used to expressly override other provisions of the INA. Well, we got that, right? Other presidents have used it. I believe Biden's used it. Yeah. President Biden suspended the entry of certain immigrants and non-immigrants who immigration officials determined to be enabling corruption. Okay. Enabling corruption. That's a worthy cause, right? If you're enabling corruption, you can't come in the country. I think it's good to say if you're a person that's going to come in the country and support a terrorist organization, you can't come in the country. Good luck, Harvard. Because you're losing in that Supreme Court. You are losing in that Supreme Court.
Are you a racist? Do you hate Mexicans?
So long, gay boys!